Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at homeostasis, and this is the second part as promised. So if you haven't watched the first video, make sure you go first watch that and then come watch this. Let's begin. So today we'll be looking at thermoregulation. Second thing, because in the previous video we looked at glucoregulation. So Thermoregulation basically has to do with maintaining a constant internal temperature of our body, and the body temperature, the normal body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. The skin is the organ. Remember, glucoregulation, we said pancreas and liver are the organ, but in thermoregulation it's the skin this time. The skin is the organ that helps in controlling the body temperature. Some animals, including ourselves, as in humans, are very good at controlling our body temperature. And we'll look at how. They can keep their temperature almost constant. And that's why it's regulation. Alright? Even though the temperature of the environment changes. This has great advantages. If the internal body temperature can be kept at around 37 degrees Celsius, enzymes can work very efficiently regardless of the outside temperature. Metabolism keeps going even if it's cold outside. In cold weather or at night, animals can be active when other animals are too cold. As we said, some enzymes have in fact, most enzymes have their optimum temperature of 37 degrees Celsius at which they work the most efficiently. That's why maintaining this constant temperature helps those enzymes work efficiently, and our body processes and undergoes metabolism efficiently and properly. Then we need to look at the part of the skin. Um, you should know how to label this. You're not going to be asked to draw it, but once you know where everything is in, you pretty much get used to knowing it. So instead of this, let's use the laser. Let's begin. You see this brown thing, right, of the skin? This is covered with a layer of dead cells, and these dead cells prevent water from evaporating. Our body is 37 degrees Celsius, so some of this skin prevents the water that evaporates to prevent it from escaping here. Okay, then we have pathogens outside our body which try and attack us, but this dead skins prevent it from entering. Then we have temperature receptors. Okay, yeah, let's use pen. We have temperature receptors, sensory receptors, and pressure receptors. Now, we know receptors do what? They detect a change in your environment or detect stimuli. So this one detect change in the temperature, this one detect change in senses, and this one detects change in the pressure. Let's say someone pinches you over here. You won't feel it as much when he does it slowly because the pressure receptor is inside. But when someone does it hard, then you really feel it because then it affects the pressure receptor. But that's not necessary. That's not in your syllabus, so don't focus too much on that. We have fat cell. Fat cells are energy reserves and insulates the body. Then we have what else? We have arterial and venule. The arterial brings oxygenated blood, and the venule takes deoxygenated blood. Um, okay, as a biology student so far, you should know that we have veins like this, and we have smaller veins. Oh no, let's start from artery instead. Artery, artery like this, and smaller ones are called arterial, and these form capillaries, then these form venule, and these form veins. So this is what I'm saying. Let me use oxygenated blood comes in from the artery like this. It breaks down into an arterial, goes up. This is where the blood capillary is. The diffusion and blah 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 happens over here. Then it comes, deoxygenated blood comes through the venule and passes in the veins. Okay, that's basically the process. Then we have Sweat gland. The sweat gland extracts water and ions from blood to produce sweat. You know, when you work out and do a lot of things, you release sweat, right? So this is what makes the sweat. The sweat travels up here and is released through the sweat pore. Then we have blood capillaries, and these vessels are called shunt vessels. You need to remember that, okay? Shunt vessels. Let me clean this. Then we have our hair. You see, typically you should have hair on your hand. If you don't, get yourself checked. I'm just joking, okay? So we have hair on our hands and our legs, and this hair helps in insulating the body as well. And we have something called the hair erector muscles, that determines whether the hair lies down on the skin like this or it stays up. Now I'm sure you notice that your hair is not always standing up or always laying down. It depends on the different conditions that determine whether the hair is standing up or it's not standing up. Essentially, yeah. Then we have the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. This is the part of the brain called hypothalamus, which is at the center of the control mechanism that keeps internal temperature constant. The hypothalamus coordinates the activities of the parts of the body that can help to keep the temperature of the blood at its set point. The hypothalamus acts as a thermostat. It contains temperature receptors and sends the temperature of the blood running through it. If this is above or below 37 degrees Celsius, then the hypothalamus sends electrical impulses along neurons to the parts of the body which have the function of regulating your body temperature, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, what it's saying is that we saw that we have temperature receptors here, right? So these temperature receptors will detect a change in the environment, send an impulse to the brain. The brain will then process it, and it will then actions in our body will happen so that the blood comes, not blood, our body temperature comes back within set points. Remember, we talked about set points in the previous video. Again, if you haven't watched it, go make sure you watch that before you're watching this video. Okay, yeah, that's hypothalamus. Then we have temperature receptors. Temperature receptors are two of them. We have two temperature receptors: hypothalamus temperature receptor and skin surface temperature receptor. These are receptors that detect the temperature of your blood, and skin surface temperature receptors are receptors that detect the temperature of our surroundings. Now these give us, don't worry yourself about this, let me explain. So you see, sometimes when the outside temperature gets warm, right, it takes some time before your blood also gets warm. It's not like, oh, the surrounding gets warm, so as soon as that happens, your blood also gets warm. So yeah, that's what it is, that these receptors detect change in your surroundings, while these detect change in your blood, because sometimes you may have different temperatures. Okay, then changes in temperature, very important. What does fall in temperature mean? Fall in temperature means it's getting colder, right? Colder. And rise in temperature means it's getting hotter. So what will happen? When it starts to get colder, right, the receptors in your blood would detect this fall in heat. That's one mark when you're explaining this. Detect this fall in heat. The muscles will start contracting. Why? Because contraction and relaxation means that you will produce a lot of heat, and when heat is produced, it will counteract the coldness in your body, making or bringing the blood temperature back to normal. Metabolism increases, the same explanation here. The hair stands up, very important. You see, we have this thing like this. When, where did it go? When hair stands up, right? Let me draw a few hair. Yeah. Okay, I'm not technically a very good artist, but just manage with me. When hair stands up, right? The air or the warm air that's moving, let's change color, in fact. Let's give it orange. The warm air that's going through, that's around us, these hair will trap the warm air, bringing it down. Like they will trap the hot air or the warm air so that it will counteract the coldness and normalize your temperature. That's why hair standing up helps in increasing body temperature. Then vasoconstriction. Now this is what vasoconstriction is. Yeah. So you see, we said blood comes in from the artery like this, arterial. In vasoconstriction, what will happen is that it will get wider here and this will constrict. That's where constricts, like constrict means what? To become smaller. So this will become smaller. Why? Because will allow the blood to flow through the shunt vessels beneath. See, there's this much layer gap between where the blood is flowing from um, uh, through the capillaries, right? At first it was moving like this, now it's moving like this. Because it moves like this, right? It's not closer to the skin surface anymore, so less heat is given out. That's that. Okay, but I'll explain vasodilation when we get here. Then sweat glands reduce secretion. You see, when you sweat, right? When you sweat over here, this goes up here and the sweat is released, right? This will evaporate. And if you have done physics in IGCSE, you should by now know that evaporation causes the temperature to decrease. And we don't want that because our temperature is already decreasing. We want temperature to rather increase. That's why sweat glands reduce secretion. Then another thing I forgot to add is this muscle contraction and relaxation causes shivering. Have you noticed that when it's very cold you start to shiver? This is the reason why. Then we come to rise in temperature, means it's getting hotter. Hypothalamus detects this change in detects this stimuli or change in temperature in your blood. We said that. Now this hair lies flat. This hair that was originally there, it's right here, is now lying flat ish, not like this, because you don't need to trap any heat again, right? You don't need to trap because temperature is already rising. You need temperature to come down. That's why they will lie down. Then we have vasodilation. Okay, let me change color. Let's go with purple. Now this time what's going to happen is that these ones will dilate or they will become bigger so that blood can flow through the top. Once it flows near the skin, heat will be lost. So okay, let's use red to depict heat. Heat will be lost because it's very close to the surface. At first we made it go under so that it's not close to the surface and it doesn't lose heat, but this time we want the heat to be lost. That's why uh, our arteries undergo vasodilation. Then we have sweat production. Sweat production, as I said, causes let's go back once again. It causes it causes the temperature to come down to become colder, and that's exactly what we want. That's why sweat production increases. So make sure you know that. Make sure you understand this. Don't try and memorize it. Doesn't really work. Once you understand what is going to happen, how it's going to happen, it becomes really, really easy. And trust me, it becomes really easy. Okay, then we have differences in glucoregulation and thermoregulation. They both use receptors. Remember, in glucoregulation we had islets. This time we have temperature receptors and hypothalamus. They both involve set points. We said in glucoregulation it was things 0.8 to 1.1 mg per cm cube, and in thermoregulation our set point is 37 degrees Celsius. They both involve negative feedback, and in fact I want you guys to do something. Define negative feedback for me in the comments. Let me see how many of you actually watched the first video. And that's that for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe because it takes real effort in making these videos. See you. Bye bye.